The galaxy was vast, filled with stars that twinkled like diamonds against the endless blackness. For years, humanity had reached out into this great unknown, seeking allies and friends among the countless alien races. One such alliance had been formed with the Valorans, a species known for their advanced technology and calm demeanor. Together, humans and Valorans worked under the Galactic War Council to keep peace across the stars. But alliances, no matter how strong they seemed, could crumble when trust disappeared. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge of the starship Eclipse Asterisk, his eyes fixed on the large view screen in front of him. The screen displayed a live feed from the Galactic War Council's emergency meeting. Ryan's hands gripped the railing tightly as he listened to Admiral Lewis, a man whose voice carried authority, but also an unsettling coldness. Beside Ryan, Lieutenant Elena Vega leaned forward in her seat, her face pale with disbelief. "They're really going to do it?" Elena whispered, her voice trembling slightly. She glanced at Ryan, searching for reassurance, but found none. His expression was grim, his jaw clenched so hard it looked like it might break. On the screen, Admiral Lewis spoke without emotion. "The Valorans have become a threat to galactic stability. Their actions are unpredictable, and their motives unclear. To protect our interests and ensure the survival of humanity, we must act decisively." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. He had served alongside Valorans during several missions. They were not perfect, but they were honorable. Never once had they shown signs of betrayal or aggression. And yet, here was the Council, accusing them of being a danger to the galaxy. "What proof do they even have?" Elena asked, breaking the silence. Her words hung in the air unanswered. Ryan didn't know what evidence the Council claimed to possess, but something about the whole situation felt wrong, very wrong. Before either of them could say more, the screen switched to a live transmission from space. A fleet of warships hovered above the Valoran homeworld, their weapons glowing ominously. The Valorans had no idea what was coming. Their cities shimmered below, peaceful and unaware of the doom descending upon them. "Fire," Admiral Lewis ordered, his tone as casual as if he were asking for a cup of coffee. The ships unleashed their devastating payload. Bright beams of energy tore through the atmosphere, striking the planet with unimaginable force. Explosions lit up the surface, spreading fire and destruction across continents. The once beautiful world was reduced to ash and rubble in mere moments. Ryan turned away from the screen, unable to watch anymore. His stomach churned, and his mind raced with questions. Why would the Council order such an atrocity? What had the Valorans done to deserve this fate? And most importantly, what would happen now? Elena stared blankly at the floor, tears welling up in her eyes. "We just destroy our own allies," she said softly. "How can we ever justify this?" Ryan didn't answer. He didn't know how to. All he knew was that the decision would change everything, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. The Valorans would never forgive humanity for this betrayal. If any of them survived, they would seek revenge. And when that day came, Ryan feared there would be no stopping them. For now, though, all he could do was stand there, haunted by the images of destruction playing over and over in his mind. The weight of what had happened pressed down on him, heavier than anything he'd ever felt before. Humanity had crossed a line today, a line that could never be uncrossed. The news of the Valoran homeworld's destruction spread like wildfire across Earth. It wasn't long before the entire planet was buzzing with shock, anger, and fear. People gathered in streets and squares, staring up at massive screens broadcasting grainy footage of the attack. The images were horrifying. Entire cities wiped out in seconds, oceans boiling away under the heat of energy beams, and skies darkened by smoke and ash. For many, it felt like watching the end of the world. At Central Command, General Matthew Hayes paced back and forth in his office. His face was red, his hands clenched into fists so tight his knuckles turned white. He had seen war before, but this was something else entirely. This wasn't just an act of aggression. It was a massacre. And worse still, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than what the Galactic War Council was telling everyone. "Sir," called Lieutenant Morgan, one of his aides, standing nervously by the door. "President Bennett is on the line. She wants an update." Hayes stopped pacing and let out a heavy sigh. "Tell her I'll be there in a minute." He glanced at the stack of classified documents sitting on his desk. These files contained intel about the decision to strike the Valorans, a decision Hayes hadn't agreed with but had been forced to follow. Now, those same documents seemed to scream louder than ever, hinting at secrets buried deep within the Council's hierarchy. Down in the city, Captain Ryan Carter sat slumped in a chair inside a quiet briefing room aboard the Eclipse *. His mind kept replaying the attack over and over again. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't erase the memory of the explosions or the look of horror on Elena Vega's face when she realized what was happening. They had both sworn to protect humanity, but now Ryan wondered if they'd been fighting for the wrong side all along. Elena entered the room quietly, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Ryan without saying a word. Her eyes were tired, her usual spark dimmed by grief and confusion. "Do you think we'll ever understand why this happened?" she asked finally, breaking the silence. Ryan shook his head. "I don't know. But I do know one thing. If the Valorans find out we played any part in this, they won't stop until every last one of us pays for it." As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the ship. Both Ryan and Elena jumped to their feet and rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, reports poured in from monitoring stations around Earth's orbit. Strange signals had been detected near Jupiter, suggesting possible Valoran activity. It could mean only one thing. Survivors were already regrouping and planning their next move. Back at Central Command, General Hayes joined President Laura Bennett in a secure conference room. The president looked pale, her normally confident demeanor shaken by the weight of recent events. "Matthew," she began, her voice low and urgent, "we need answers. Fast. If even half of what you suspect is true, then we've got bigger problems than just the Valorans." Hayes nodded grimly. "I agree, Madam President, but digging deeper means risking everything, including our positions. Are you ready for that?" Laura hesitated for only a moment before replying. "If it means saving what's left of humanity, then yes. Do whatever it takes." Meanwhile, panic gripped Earth's population as rumors of imminent retaliation spread. Families huddled together in underground shelters, while others barricaded themselves in homes, praying they wouldn't be targeted. In the skies above, military forces scrambled to reinforce orbital defenses, knowing full well they might not stand a chance against the wrath of the Valorans. For Ryan and Elena, the tension was unbearable. Every beep of a console, every flash of light outside the ship's windows made them flinch. They knew the calm wouldn't last much longer. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Valoran people were preparing to strike back, and when they did, nothing would ever be the same again. The remnants of the Valoran people were scattered, broken, and furious. Their once proud civilization had been reduced to ashes in a single brutal act, but they were far from defeated. Deep in the cold reaches of space, hidden among asteroid fields and abandoned moons, the survivors regrouped under the leadership of Callan Voss, a tall, imposing figure with piercing eyes and an unyielding determination. Callan was more than just a leader. He was a symbol of hope for his people. And now, he carried the weight of vengeance on his shoulders. From the safety of their hidden base, Callan addressed what remained of his species. His voice, calm but filled with barely contained rage, echoed through the makeshift command center. "We will not fade into history as victims," he declared, his words broadcast to every surviving Valoran outpost. "Earth betrayed us. They destroyed our home, our families, our future, but they will not destroy our spirit. We will rise again, and we will make them pay." As Callan spoke, fear gripped Earth. News of his speech reached every corner of the planet within hours. People huddled around screens in public squares, listening to translations of his chilling words. Governments scrambled to prepare for the worst, but no one knew when or where the Valorans would strike. The uncertainty was almost worse than the threat itself. Families stayed indoors, schools closed, and streets emptied as humanity braced for the inevitable. President Laura Bennett called another emergency meeting at Central Command. General Matthew Hayes stood beside her, his face grim as reports flooded in about suspected Valoran activity near Jupiter. "They're testing us," Hayes said, pointing to a map of the solar system displayed on the wall. "These signals, they're probing our defenses, looking for weaknesses." Laura nodded, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Then we need to hit them first, before they can organize a full-scale attack." Hayes hesitated. "Madam President, that's risky. If we misstep, it could escalate things faster than we can handle." "We don't have a choice," she snapped, her voice sharp with desperation. "If we wait too long, they'll crush us. I want a team sent to investigate these signals immediately. Find out what they're planning, and stop them if you can." The mission fell to Captain Ryan Carter and Lieutenant Alina Vega. Both were briefed hastily before being deployed aboard a smaller reconnaissance vessel. Their orders were clear: locate the source of the signals near Jupiter and neutralize any potential threats. It wasn't a suicide mission, but it might as well have been. The odds of encountering hostile forces were high, and backup was light years away. As their ship approached the edge of Jupiter's orbit, Ryan stared out the viewport at the swirling red storm below. The planet's beauty was mesmerizing, but it offered little comfort. He glanced at Alina, who sat silently at the controls, her focus unwavering. Her hands moved deftly over the console, adjusting course and scanning for anomalies. "Anything yet?" Ryan asked, breaking the silence. "Not yet," Alina replied, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. She adjusted the sensors, narrowing the search parameters. Suddenly, the screen flickered, and a cluster of small ships appeared on the radar. "Got something," she said, her tone shifting to alarm. "Multiple contacts, moving fast." Ryan leaned closer to the screen. "Are they Valorans?" Alina hesitated, running additional scans. "It's hard to say. They're using some kind of cloaking technology. But yeah, I think so." The two exchanged worried glances. There was no time to retreat. The unknown ships were already closing in, their shapes becoming visible against the backdrop of Jupiter's massive form. Sleek and angular, they bore the unmistakable design of Valoran craft. "They're here," Ryan muttered, gripping the edge of the console. "Let's see what they want." Within moments, the enemy ships opened fire. Bright bursts of energy lit up the darkness, forcing Ryan and Alina to take evasive maneuvers. Alarms blared inside the cockpit as the ship shuddered under the impact of near misses. Alina worked frantically to keep them airborne, while Ryan manned the defensive systems, firing back at their attackers. Despite the chaos, they managed to hold their own. For a while. But the Valorans were relentless. Wave after wave of attacks battered their shields until they began to falter. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, reinforcements arrived in the form of a squadron of Earth's fighters. The sudden appearance of allies turned the tide of the battle, forcing the Valorans to retreat. Breathing heavily, Ryan slumped back in his seat as the immediate danger passed. "That was too close," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. Alina nodded, her hands still trembling slightly. "Yeah, but this is just the beginning. They'll be back, and next time, we might not be so lucky." The first major strike came without warning. Earth's orbital defense platforms, the last line of protection for the planet, were overwhelmed in a matter of minutes. The Valorans had planned their attack with precision, using advanced cloaking technology to slip past early warning systems. By the time alarms blared across Earth's military bases, it was already too late. Bright beams of energy tore through the darkness of space, striking the platforms one by one. Explosions lit up the night sky, visible even from the surface of the planet. Debris rained down like fiery meteors, crashing into cities and oceans below. Billions of lives were lost in an instant as panic swept through humanity. Streets filled with screams, and emergency broadcasts urged people to seek shelter, but there was nowhere safe to hide. Captain Ryan Carter and Lieutenant Elena Vega watched the chaos unfold from their reconnaissance ship, still stationed near Jupiter after the earlier skirmish. Their instruments picked up the destruction in real time, each blip on the radar representing another platform falling. Ryan clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. "This is it," he muttered. "They're not holding back." Elena stared at the screen, her face pale. "We need to warn Central Command. They have to know what's coming next." Ryan nodded, snapping out of his daze. He activated the communication system, sending an urgent message back to Earth. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't make much difference. The damage was already done, and the Valorans weren't going to stop until they had achieved total devastation. Back on Earth, General Matthew Hayes stood in Central Command, watching helplessly as reports poured in about the destruction. Entire cities lay in ruins, and millions of civilians were trapped under collapsed buildings or fleeing for their lives. The orbital platforms had been humanity's best defense, and now they were gone. Without them, Earth was completely vulnerable. President Laura Bennett entered the room, her face drawn and weary. She looked at Hayes, her voice trembling with fear and frustration. "What do we do now? How do we fight back?" Hayes shook his head. "We don't have the resources to match their firepower. Our only chance is to hit them where it hurts, cut off their supply lines, disrupt their communications. But we'll need time to organize something like that." "We don't have time," Laura snapped, slamming her fist on the table. "People are dying out there, Matthew. We can't just sit here and wait for the next attack." Before Hayes could respond, another officer rushed into the room, breathless. "Sir, we've detected a small Valoran strike team heading toward the central energy grid. If they take it out, we'll lose power across half the continent." Hayes immediately turned to the nearest monitor, barking orders. "Send every available unit to intercept them. We can't let them reach the grid." Meanwhile, Ryan and Elena received the distress call about the energy grid while en route back to Earth. Knowing how critical the situation was, they diverted course, flying straight into the heart of the conflict. As they approached the grid, they spotted the Valoran strike team, a group of sleek, armored fighters moving swiftly through the air. "Looks like they're trying to disable the main reactor," Elena said, scanning the area. "If we can stop them, we might buy Earth some time." Ryan nodded, his jaw tight with determination. "Let's do this." The two launched their ship into the fray, engaging the Valoran fighters in a fierce dogfight. Lasers streaked across the sky as both sides exchanged fire. Ryan focused on piloting, weaving through the chaos with expert skill, while Elena manned the weapons, firing precise shots that took down enemy fighters one by one. Despite being outnumbered, Ryan and Elena fought with everything they had. Every explosion, every burst of light, brought them closer to victory or defeat. Finally, after what felt like hours, the last Valoran fighter exploded in a brilliant flash, leaving the energy grid intact for now. Breathing heavily, Ryan slumped back in his seat. "That was too close," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Elena nodded, staring out at the damaged landscape below. "Yeah, but we're not done yet. This is just the beginning." As they hovered above the grid, watching smoke rise from the battlefield, they knew the war was far from over. The Valorans would keep coming, and humanity would have to find a way to stand against them, or risk losing everything. The battle for the energy grid had been won, but the victory felt hollow. Captain Ryan Carter and Lieutenant Elena Vega sat in silence aboard their ship, staring at the wreckage below. Fires burned across the landscape, and the air was thick with smoke. The Valoran strike team had been stopped, but the cost was high. Dozens of soldiers had lost their lives defending the grid, including some of their closest friends. Elena finally broke the silence. "We can't keep doing this," she said, her voice trembling. "Fighting them one attack at a time. It's not enough. We're losing too much." Ryan nodded, his face clouded with frustration. "I know. But what else can we do? Every time we stop one threat, another pops up. It feels like we're just running in circles." Elena didn't respond right away. Instead, she turned her attention to the data they had recovered from the destroyed Valoran fighters. Their ship's systems were advanced, far beyond anything Earth had seen before. She began analyzing the information, hoping to find something, anything, that could give humanity an edge. Hours passed as Elena sifted through lines of encrypted code and fragmented files. Finally, she found something unusual. Hidden deep within the data was a series of communications logs. At first glance, they seemed routine, but as she dug deeper, patterns emerged. Certain messages referenced coordinates, dates, and names that didn't belong to the Valorans. "Ryan," Elena said suddenly, her voice sharp with urgency. "You need to see this." Ryan leaned over her shoulder, scanning the screen. His brow furrowed as he read the logs. These are Galactic War Council codes," he said slowly. "Why would the Valorans have council intel?" Elena shook her head. "It's not just intel. Look here." She pointed to a specific message. "This is a directive. It's an order, from the council, to target the Valorans, and it's dated months before the attack on their homeworld." Ryan's blood ran cold. So the council planned this all along. They didn't just decide to destroy the Valorans on a whim. This was premeditated. Elena nodded grimly. And if the Valorans intercepted these messages, they'd know exactly who gave the order. No wonder they're so angry. Ryan clenched his fists. "If people find out about this, it'll tear Earth apart. The council betrayed the Valorans. And us. They used us to carry out their dirty work. We have to tell someone." Elena insisted. "General Hayes needs to see this." Ryan hesitated. Going to Hayes meant risking everything. If the general decided to bury the evidence instead of exposing it, Ryan and Elena could be silenced, for good. But keeping quiet wasn't an option either. Humanity deserved to know the truth. "All right," Ryan said finally. "Let's get this to Hayes. But we go carefully. If the wrong people find out what we're doing, we're dead." When they returned to Central Command, Ryan and Elena requested an immediate meeting with General Matthew Hayes. The general listened intently as they presented the evidence, his expression growing darker with each passing moment. When they finished, he sat back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "This changes everything," Hayes said quietly. "If this gets out, it'll destroy what little trust people still have in the council." "But it has to get out," Elena argued. "The Valorans deserve to know the truth, and so does Earth. People are dying because of this betrayal. We can't let it continue." Hayes sighed heavily. "You're right. But exposing this won't be easy. Whoever orchestrated this attack has powerful allies. If we move too quickly, we'll be taken down before we can act." Ryan leaned forward. "Then we need help. Someone who can navigate the politics and fight back if things go south." Hayes thought for a moment before nodding. "There's one person I trust. Major Samantha Cole. She's smart, resourceful, and has no love for the council. If anyone can help us expose this conspiracy, it's her." Within hours, Samantha joined them in a secure briefing room. A tall woman with sharp features and an even sharper mind. She wasted no time getting to the point. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her tone direct and focused. Hayes handed her the data files. "We need to uncover the full scope of this betrayal and make sure the world sees it. But we move quietly. One wrong step, and we're finished." Samantha scanned the files, her eyes narrowing. "This goes deeper than I thought. All right, let's bring them down." As the group began planning their next steps, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking a dangerous line. Exposing the truth might unite humanity, or it might tear it apart completely. Either way, there was no turning back now. The plan was risky, but there was no other choice. Major Samantha Cole took charge of the operation, her sharp mind working overtime to piece together a strategy that could expose the Council's betrayal without getting everyone involved killed. She divided the team into two groups. Ryan and Elena would focus on gathering more evidence, while she and General Hayes worked on finding allies within Earth's government who could help them share the truth with the public. "We need hard proof," Samantha said, pacing the secure briefing room. "Something undeniable. If we go public with just these logs, the Council will twist the story and discredit us before we even get a word out." Ryan nodded. "Where do we start?" Samantha pointed to a map of known Galactic War Council facilities. "There's a data vault on Titan's moon. It's heavily guarded, but if we can get inside, we'll find everything. The original orders, the names of those involved, maybe even recordings. That's what we need." Elena frowned. "Heavily guarded? You mean suicide-level guarded?" "Not if we're careful," Samantha replied calmly. "We'll use disguises, fake credentials, and a little bit of luck. Trust me, I've done this before." Ryan exchanged a glance with Elena. Neither of them liked the idea of sneaking into enemy territory, but they knew Samantha was right. Without solid evidence, their mission would fail before it even began. The next day, the team prepared for the infiltration. Ryan and Elena donned uniforms resembling those worn by Council envoys, complete with forged ID badges. Samantha briefed them one last time before sending them off. "Remember, stay calm and stick to the plan. If anything goes wrong, signal for extraction, and we'll pull you out." As Ryan and Elena boarded a small shuttle disguised as a supply vessel, nerves prickled along their skin. The journey to Titan's moon felt endless, every passing second stretching longer than the last. When they finally arrived, they were greeted by a massive facility embedded in the icy landscape. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, and surveillance drones buzzed overhead. "This is insane," Elena whispered as they approached the main entrance. "What if they check our IDs?" "They won't," Ryan said, trying to sound confident. "Just keep your head down and follow my lead." They passed through security without incident, their fake credentials holding up under scrutiny. Inside, the facility was a maze of corridors and locked doors. Using a handheld device provided by Samantha, they located the data vault deep within the complex. The door was sealed with an advanced encryption lock, but Elena worked quickly, her fingers flying over the keypad. Within minutes, the door hissed open. Inside, rows of servers hummed softly, glowing with countless terabytes of information. Elena plugged a data drive into the main terminal, downloading files as fast as possible. Ryan kept watch, his hand resting on the blaster holstered at his side. Every sound made him flinch, every shadow seemed like a threat. Suddenly, alarms blared through the facility. Red lights flashed, and shouts echoed in the distance. "They know we're here," Ryan said, panic creeping into his voice. "Almost done," Elena replied, her eyes glued to the screen. Seconds later, the download completed. "Got it. Let's move." They sprinted through the corridors, dodging guards and narrowly avoiding detection. As they reached the exit, a squad of soldiers blocked their path. Ryan raised his weapon, ready to fight, but before he could act, a loud explosion rocked the building. Debris rained down, creating chaos and giving them just enough cover to slip away. Outside, Samantha waited in a cloaked ship, engines humming softly. "Get in," she shouted as Ryan and Elena scrambled aboard. As the ship lifted off, Ryan collapsed into a seat, his heart pounding. "Did we get what we needed?" Elena held up the data drive. "Everything. Now let's hope it's enough." Samantha grinned despite the tension. "It will be. This is just the beginning." The ride back to Earth was tense and silent. Ryan Carter sat slumped in his seat, staring at the floor while Elena Vega clutched the data drive tightly in her hand. Neither of them spoke much during the journey, their minds replaying every moment of the raid on Titan's moon. The narrow escape had left them shaken but determined. They knew the information they carried could change everything, if they lived long enough to share it. When they finally landed at a secure military base, General Matthew Hayes and Major Samantha Cole were waiting for them. Both looked exhausted but alert, ready to act. Without wasting time, the group moved into a private briefing room where the data drive was plugged into a secure terminal. Files began appearing on the screen, encrypted documents, audio recordings, and video logs. Each piece of evidence painted a clearer picture of the Council's betrayal. Hayes leaned forward as one particular recording played. It showed Admiral Lewis speaking with a shadowy figure whose face was blurred. "The Valorans are becoming too powerful," Lewis said coldly. "If we don't act now, they'll turn against us. Humanity must come first." Elena felt sick as she listened. They didn't just destroy the Valorans because they saw them as a threat. They did it out of greed, for control. Samantha nodded grimly. "This proves it. The Council manipulated everyone. The Valorans, Earth, even its own people. Now we have to make sure the world sees this." But exposing the truth wouldn't be easy. The team knew they couldn't trust anyone outside their small circle. If word leaked about what they had uncovered, the Council would stop at nothing to silence them. Every step forward felt like walking a tightrope over a bottomless pit. "We need to release this carefully," Hayes said, rubbing his temples. "We can't just dump it online or broadcast it without context. People will panic if they think their leaders betrayed them." Ryan spoke up, his voice firm despite his fatigue. "Then we go straight to the top. President Bennett needs to see this. She has to know what's been done in her name." Hayes hesitated, then nodded. "All right. But we do this quietly. No leaks, no mistakes." The next morning, the team arranged a secret meeting with President Laura Bennett. They met in an underground bunker far from Central Command, away from prying eyes and listening ears. When the president entered the room, her face was pale, her expression wary. Hayes wasted no time, playing the most damning recordings for her. Laura listened in stunned silence, her hands trembling slightly as the weight of the conspiracy settled over her. When the playback ended, she sank into a chair, looking older than ever. How could they do this?" she whispered. "They thought they were protecting humanity," Samantha said bluntly. "But all they've done is put us on the brink of extinction." Laura took a deep breath, steadying herself. "What happens now? If we expose this, the Council will retaliate, and the Valorans, they'll never forgive us." "That's why we need to act fast," Ryan said. "We show the world the truth, and we offer them proof that not all of humanity supported this. Then we reach out to the Valorans. Maybe it's not too late to make peace." Elena nodded. "It's risky, but it's our only chance. If we don't try, we lose everything." After a long pause, Laura gave a slow nod. "Do it. Release the evidence, but prepare for the fallout." As the team left the bunker, Ryan felt a strange mix of hope and dread. For the first time since the war began, he believed there might be a way to fix what had been broken. But he also knew the road ahead would be dangerous, and that not everyone would survive to see the end. Back at the base, Samantha began coordinating the release of the files, encrypting them and setting up anonymous channels to ensure they reached the public safely. Meanwhile, Ryan and Elena prepared for the hardest part of all, finding a way to speak directly to the Valorans. It was a gamble, but if they succeeded, it might just save Earth, and themselves, from total destruction. The evidence was released to the public in waves, each piece more damning than the last. News outlets across Earth broadcast the recordings and documents, showing undeniable proof of the Galactic War Council's betrayal. People gathered in streets and squares, staring at screens in disbelief as they learned the truth about the attack on the Valorans. Anger quickly turned into outrage, and protests erupted outside government buildings and council offices. The world was in chaos, but for Ryan Carter and Elena Vega, this was only the beginning. President Laura Bennett addressed the nation from a secure location, her voice steady despite the storm raging around her. "What has been done in our name is unforgivable," she said. "The Council betrayed not only the Valorans, but also humanity itself. We will hold those responsible accountable. And we will make amends." Her words were met with mixed reactions. Some cheered, grateful for her honesty, while others demanded immediate action against the Council. But amidst the turmoil, one question loomed large. What would the Valorans do now that they knew the full story? Would they believe humanity's promise to uncover the truth, or would their thirst for revenge consume them? Ryan and Elena volunteered to find out. Under Samantha Cole's guidance, they prepared for a dangerous mission, to meet face-to-face with Callan Voss, the leader of the surviving Valorans. It was a gamble, but it was also their best chance to broker peace. A small, unarmed shuttle was chosen for the journey, its design altered to appear less threatening. Both Ryan and Elena wore plain uniforms, stripped of any insignias that might provoke hostility. As their ship approached the neutral zone, a desolate asteroid field designated for negotiations, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling of dread in his chest. "If they shoot us down before we even land, don't be surprised," he muttered to Elena. "They won't," Elena replied firmly, though her knuckles were white from gripping the armrest. "They want answers too. And if they see we're willing to come unarmed, maybe they'll listen." Their shuttle docked at a Valoran cruiser floating silently among the asteroids. As they stepped onto the alien vessel, they were met by a group of armed guards. Their weapons were trained on Ryan and Elena, who raised their hands slowly to show they meant no harm. After a tense moment, the guards lowered their weapons and gestured for the humans to follow. Callan Voss awaited them in a dimly lit chamber, his towering figure silhouetted against the faint glow of monitors displaying images of Earth. His piercing eyes studied Ryan and Elena as they entered, his expression unreadable. For several seconds, no one spoke. The air was heavy with unspoken accusations and lingering pain. Finally, Callan broke the silence. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice low and cold. "Do you expect forgiveness?" Ryan swallowed hard but kept his gaze steady. "We didn't come here asking for forgiveness. We came to tell you the truth, the full truth. The attack on your homeworld wasn't just an act of war. It was a conspiracy orchestrated by the Galactic War Council. Humanity wasn't united behind it. Many of us had no idea what was happening until it was too late." Elena stepped forward, holding out a data tablet containing the evidence they had gathered. "This proves everything. Every order, every lie. It's all here. We risked our lives to bring it to you because we believe the real enemy isn't your people or ours. It's the ones who manipulated us both." Callan stared at the tablet for a long moment before taking it. He scrolled through the files, his expression darkening with each passing second. When he finally looked up, there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Not quite trust, but perhaps the beginnings of understanding. "You admit your leaders betrayed us," Callan said slowly. "But how can I believe you won't do the same?" "We can't change the past," Ryan admitted. "But we can choose a different future. Let us prove it to you." For the first time, Callan hesitated. The weight of his decision hung in the air, heavy and uncertain. Callan Voss stared at Ryan Carter and Elena Vega, his sharp eyes searching for any sign of deceit. The silence in the chamber was suffocating, broken only by the faint hum of the monitors behind him. Finally, he set the data tablet down on the table with a heavy thud. His expression remained unreadable, but there was a shift, a slight softening in his posture that suggested he was considering their words. "You bring evidence," Callan said slowly, his voice low and measured. "Evidence of betrayal by your own leaders. But evidence alone does not erase the pain my people have suffered. It does not bring back our homeworld or the billions we have lost." Ryan nodded, his throat dry. "We know it doesn't, and we can't undo what's been done. But if we work together, maybe we can stop this cycle of hatred and destruction before it consumes both our species." Elena stepped forward, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "We're asking for a chance, not just for us, but for everyone who still believes peace is possible. If we don't try, then all those lives were lost for nothing. Callan studied them for a long moment, his gaze flickering between Ryan and Alina. He seemed to be weighing their sincerity against the anger and grief that had driven his people for so long. Finally, he turned away, pacing slowly across the room. When he spoke again, his tone was quieter, almost weary. "My people will not easily forgive," he admitted. "Many of them call for Earth's annihilation, believing it to be the only way to honor those we've lost. But I cannot ignore the truth you've brought me today." He paused, turning back to face them. "If humanity truly wishes to make amends, then actions must follow these words. Prove to us that you are different from the ones who destroyed us." Ryan exchanged a glance with Alina, relief washing over them. It wasn't an outright acceptance, but it was a start, a fragile thread of hope in a war-torn galaxy. "What do you need from us?" Ryan asked cautiously. Callan crossed his arms, thinking carefully. "First, share this evidence with every corner of the galaxy. Let no one doubt the Council's crimes. Then, dismantle their power. If they remain unchecked, they will betray others as they betrayed us. And you." Alina nodded quickly. "We're already working on that. Humanity is rising against the Council, demanding justice." "Good," Callan replied. "But that is not enough. You must also help us rebuild what was taken from us. Resources, technology, whatever you can spare. Show us that you value life more than conquest." Ryan hesitated, knowing how much such a request would cost Earth, especially after the devastation they'd endured. But he also knew it was fair. "We'll do what we can," he promised. "It won't be easy, but we owe you that much, and more." Callan gave a small nod, though his expression remained guarded. "Very well. For now, I will order my forces to stand down. But understand this, if your promises prove hollow, my patience will end. And when it does, humanity will feel the full weight of our wrath." The tension in the room eased slightly, though the gravity of Callan's warning lingered. Ryan and Alina bowed their heads respectfully before leaving the chamber, escorted by Valoran guards. As they made their way back to their shuttle, neither of them spoke, overwhelmed by the enormity of what had just happened. Back aboard the ship, Alina leaned against the wall, letting out a shaky breath. "Do you think we actually did it? Do you think we stopped the war?" Ryan shook his head. "Not yet. This ceasefire is just a pause, a chance to fix things. But if we mess this up, it'll be worse than before." Alina looked at him, determination hardening her features. "Then we can't mess it up. We'll make sure Earth keeps its promises, no matter what it takes." As the shuttle lifted off and headed back toward Earth, Ryan stared out the viewport at the distant stars. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope. Peace was still fragile, held together by little more than trust and good intentions. But it was something, and in a universe torn apart by war, even the smallest spark of light was worth fighting for. The ceasefire held, for now. Earth entered a tense but hopeful new chapter, its people working tirelessly to rebuild trust and repair the damage caused by the Galactic War Council's betrayal. The Council itself had crumbled under the weight of public outrage, its leaders arrested or exiled as humanity demanded accountability. Streets once filled with panic were now alive with protests calling for unity, not just among humans, but with other species across the galaxy. Captain Ryan Carter and Lieutenant Alina Vega became symbols of this fragile peace. Their bravery in exposing the truth and risking their lives to negotiate with Callan Voss inspired millions. They traveled the world, sharing stories of survival and hope, urging people to see the Valorans not as enemies, but as allies who had suffered alongside them. It wasn't easy. Many humans still harbored fear and resentment, but Ryan and Alina refused to give up. At Central Command, General Matthew Hayes oversaw efforts to dismantle the remnants of the Council's corrupt systems. He worked closely with President Laura Bennett to establish a new governing body, one built on transparency and cooperation. We can't erase the past, Hayes told his team during a briefing. But we can learn from it. This time, we do things differently. Meanwhile, Major Samantha Cole spearheaded initiatives to aid the surviving Valorans. Ships carrying supplies, medical equipment, and advanced technology departed Earth regularly, bound for hidden outposts where the remnants of the Valoran people struggled to survive. Though progress was slow, small acts of kindness began to bridge the gap between the two species. Children drew pictures of stars and planets, sending them aboard supply ships as gestures of friendship. Elderly Valorans shared stories of their lost homeworld, teaching humans about their culture and history. Callan Voss watched these developments closely, his heart torn between caution and hope. He knew peace was fragile, balanced precariously on promises that could easily break. But he also saw the sincerity in Ryan and Alina's actions, the way they fought tirelessly to keep Earth's word. Slowly, ever so slowly, he began to believe that coexistence might be possible. One evening, Ryan stood on the balcony of Central Command, staring up at the night sky. The stars twinkled brightly, each one a reminder of how vast and unpredictable the universe truly was. Alina joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. "The future," Ryan replied after a pause. "It's scary, isn't it? Not knowing if we've done enough, or if it'll all fall apart again." Alina nodded, leaning against the railing beside him. "Yeah, but I think we've given ourselves a chance. That's more than we had before." Ryan smiled faintly. "You're right, and maybe that's enough for now." In the weeks and months that followed, Earth and the Valorans took tentative steps toward true partnership. Joint missions explored distant corners of the galaxy, searching for resources and safe havens for both species. Scientists collaborated to develop technologies capable of healing damaged ecosystems, offering a glimmer of hope for restoring parts of the Valoran homeworld. And though scars remained, from the ruins of cities to the empty chairs at family tables, there was a growing sense that humanity and the Valorans could forge something stronger from the ashes of their shared tragedy. For Ryan and Alina, the journey was far from over. There would always be challenges, battles to fight, and injustices to correct. But standing together, side by side, they vowed to face whatever came next, not just for themselves, but for everyone counting on them to protect the fragile light of peace in a fractured galaxy. As the first joint Earth-Valoran colony ship launched into the stars, carrying representatives from both species toward a new beginning, Ryan whispered to Alina, "This is just the start." She smiled back, her eyes reflecting the glow of the engines. Together, they turned their gaze skyward, ready to face whatever the future held.